They expected submission. They thought you would lower your eyes, soften your voice, shrink your presence until you became small enough to control. They believed that pressure would bend you, that isolation would silence you, that betrayal would break you. They were wrong. You remember the moment, don't you? The air felt heavier, the room felt colder, the stares sharper. They spoke in calm tones, but their intentions were loud. Stay in your place. Know your limits. Don't overreach. They expected submission. They expected you to bow your head when they raised their voices. They expected you to doubt yourself when they questioned your worth. They expected you to crumble when they withdrew their approval. But what they never understood is that you were never built to kneel. Expectation versus reality. They had already written your story in their minds. In their version, you stayed quiet. In their version, you apologized for your ambition. In their version, you stayed grateful for crumbs and called it a feast. They believed they could define you with labels. They believed repetition would rewrite your identity. You're not ready. You're not capable. You're not enough. They repeated it like a spell, hoping you'd start chanting it too. But something strange happened. Instead of shrinking, you listened. You listened to the criticism. You listened to the doubt. You listened to the silence when you succeeded and the noise when you stumbled. And then you began to understand something powerful. Their expectations were not a reflection of your limits. They were a confession of their fears. They expected submission because strength unsettled them. They expected silence because your voice exposed them. They expected obedience because your independence threatened them. Did they really think you wouldn't notice? Did they really believe you were blind to the subtle manipulations, the backhanded compliments, the quiet sabotage? They mistook your patience for weakness. They mistook your kindness for naivety. They mistook your calm for surrender. But patience is not weakness. Kindness is not stupidity. Calm is not submission. Calm is control, and control terrifies those who survive on chaos. Transformation. Phase 1. The fire within you didn't fight back with noise. You didn't explode. You didn't scream. You didn't beg to be understood. You went silent. Not the silence of defeat, the silence of preparation. While they celebrated too early, believing they had subdued you, you were rebuilding in the dark, like a phoenix incubating in ashes, like a storm forming beneath a still sky. They saw stillness. They didn't see the fire. Every insult became fuel. Every betrayal became clarity. Every dismissal became direction. You started observing more than reacting, listening more than speaking, learning more than arguing. They expected submission. Instead, you studied the battlefield. You studied yourself too. You confronted your fears. You faced your insecurities. You stared at your doubts until they blinked first. Yes, you felt the sting. Yes, there were nights when the weight felt unbearable, nights when you questioned yourself, nights when their voices echoed louder than your own. But even then, even in the darkness, you didn't kneel. You adapted. Pain became discipline. Loneliness became focus. Rejection became redirection. You turned inward. You built strength in silence. You forged confidence not from applause, but from endurance. And slowly, something shifted. Your spine straightened. Your gaze sharpened. Your presence deepened. They started noticing. You didn't argue anymore. You didn't seek validation anymore. You didn't chase approval. You were no longer performing for their comfort. You were evolving for your destiny. Conflict reaction, their shock. At first, they laughed. Oh, they'll come back. They'll apologize. They'll need us. But you didn't. You became unpredictable, unavailable, unbothered. And that confused them. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped justifying your growth. You stopped shrinking to fit their fragile expectations. Did they really think you would stay broken forever? Did they believe pain was permanent? They watched you rise with disbelief. They whispered among themselves. They tried to provoke you again, to trigger the old version of you. But the old version of you is gone. You respond with composure now, with clarity, with boundaries. And boundaries are terrifying to those who relied on your compliance. They expected submission. What they got was sovereignty. They tried to guilt you. You've changed. Yes, you have. They tried to shame you. You think you're better? No. You just think you're enough. They tried to isolate you. But isolation only sharpened your vision. The power shifted, and they felt it. You no longer needed their approval. You no longer feared their rejection. You no longer craved their validation. That's when panic set in, because control only works when someone is afraid to lose you, and you were no longer afraid. Transformation. Phase 2, the crown of fire. You didn't become louder, you became deeper. Your confidence is not arrogance. It is earned calm. It is quiet strength. It is the kind of presence that doesn't demand attention, but commands it. You walk into rooms differently now, not seeking recognition, not fearing judgment, not shrinking. You walk in as if you belong, because you do. They expected submission. Instead, they witnessed ascension, like a storm that refused to be contained, like a star that refused to dim, like fire that refused to be extinguished. You realize something monumental. The ultimate revenge is not destruction, it is indifference. When you stopped reacting, you started winning. When you stopped chasing, you started attracting. When you stopped proving, you started becoming. And becoming is unstoppable. They tried to test you again. Subtle remarks, backhanded comments, strategic exclusions. But your peace was too expensive to trade for temporary validation. You no longer fight battles that don't serve your future. You no longer entertain disrespect disguised as humor. You no longer beg for seats at tables that were built to limit you. You build your own. And when you build your own table, you decide who sits at it. This is not arrogance. This is self-respect. This is mastery. You've learned that submission was never about respect. It was about control, and you were never meant to be controlled. You were meant to lead. You were meant to inspire. You were meant to break cycles. They expected submission, but you became a revolution in human form. Mini climax, the storm that stands. Think about how far you've come. The version of you that once doubted every step now walks with certainty. The version that once tolerated disrespect now enforces boundaries. The version that once feared abandonment now chooses solitude over compromise. That's growth. That's power. That's transformation. They still watch. Some with envy, some with regret, some with confusion. They can't understand how you didn't break. They can't understand how pressure made you stronger. But diamonds are formed under pressure. And you were always rare. They expected submission. They got evolution. And evolution doesn't ask permission. Empowerment. Climax. Unstoppable presence. Now look at yourself. Look at the discipline you've built, the mindset you've sharpened, the self-respect you've cultivated. You are no longer reacting to life. You are directing it. You no longer seek approval from those who underestimated you. You no longer explain your worth to those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer bend for comfort. You stand firm, grounded, unshakable. They expected submission, but what they awakened was power. You are not fueled by revenge. You are fueled by purpose. You are not driven by anger. You are driven by clarity, and clarity is dangerous to those who thrive on confusion. You've realized something profound. You were never behind. You were never less. You were never weak. You were becoming. Every setback was sharpening you. Every betrayal was teaching you. Every obstacle was training you. And now, you don't need them to admit they were wrong. You don't need apologies. You don't need recognition. Your success speaks. Your peace speaks louder. Your presence speaks volumes without saying a word. They expected submission, but you became undeniable. Resolution, the freedom of standing tall. And here you are, not bitter, not broken, not begging, free from the need to please, free from the fear of rejection, free from the chains of other people's expectations.